Welcome to the FLCMAA certificate program. I am Ken Corll, General Manager of Club Pelican Bay in Naples, Florida. The certificate program is designed to develop club leaders and is modeled after CMAA's 11 core competencies of club management. Today's session will be on leadership, and I'm pleased to introduce Kevin MacDonald of Clarity Coaching. I've known Kevin for over 20 years. Kevin works exclusively on CMAA's coaching program and provides coaching on a one-on-one basis or in group settings. I've had the pleasure of working with Kevin on an individual basis, to workshops with our executive leadership team, to having him present as a keynote speaker to our full staff. So with that, I will turn it over to Kevin to kick off the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. What a treat to be here with all of you in Florida, and congratulations on taking on this program. I would like to start with just a little bit of background about me. I was a club manager. Have been was a member of CMAA starting in 1993, and in the year 2000, I changed careers. I left my career as a club management and studied executive coaching. I studied to be a life coach. And in the year 2002, I was asked by CMAA if I would put together a coaching program for 7,000 members. And although that was an onerous task, it was something very exciting. And I can truly tell you it's been a privilege since in the last 20 years to be the coach for CMAA, along with my partner, Shelley McDougall, who joined me in 2007. We have been throughout North America working with clubs, and through our Extraordinary Leader program, have had so many people that have gone through and taken the time and effort to really work on themselves. And that's what this is going to be about today, is not only working on yourself, but helping you take the same skills that we use with you individually and help them be part of your leadership toolbox. So I would love to start with a concept of intent, is that we start things with intention. And Shelley and I talk about this all the time, whether you're starting a conversation, you're starting a course, you're starting a class, you're starting a year or a day or an hour. If you start with intention, you're more likely to get what you want out of it. And so a little bit about me, just to give you a little bit of detail. Today, I'm 24,093 days old. I've been married to my wife, Rose, for 15,014 days. And for the last 3,535 days, I've written down 10 things that I'm grateful for every day. And the chance to speak to you today will be one of those things I write down for today. But we really feel that when we focus on what we're grateful for instead of what we don't have, it does change how we show up in the world. So that's part of an intention. A number of years ago, my wife and I, back in the 80s, watched a movie called Roxanne. And Roxanne was a movie about a small town fire chief who had a big nose. And I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but it was filmed in a town called Nelson, BC. Nelson is about 7 hours drive from where we live, near Vancouver, British Columbia. And my wife always wanted to go to Nelson. So on our 40th wedding anniversary, which was 14,610 days of marriage, we decided we wanted to go somewhere in the world. And she said, let's go to Nelson. And so we embarked on a week in Nelson. We had 6 days at a beautiful Airbnb, and we had one day that was going to be in this hotel at the start of our trip. So I booked the hotel room. I paid a little extra for a view room. And as we were pulling out of the driveway, I said, I'd like to start our vacation with an intention. And she said, what is it? And I said, that nothing or no one will ruin our celebration of 40 years. Like, this is all about joy and happiness. We're not going to let little things bother us. And she agreed that that would be a great thing. So we drove 7 hours and 10 minutes to Nelson, BC, checked into our hotel room. And when you pay extra for your view room, you go up, and first thing you do is open the curtains. And we opened the curtains, and there, right in front of us, was a brick wall. And that was a view, just not the one that we were hoping for. So we saw this brick wall, and I went down to the front desk and I said, hey, I paid extra for a view room, and there's a brick wall on an alley. And the lady said, well, that's your fault. You booked through a third party. You didn't book through us, so there's nothing we can do to help you. And I said, well, thank you very much, because nothing or no one was going to ruin this trip. And so it is what it is. We're not going to let that be something that takes away. Went out, had a beautiful lunch on the patio. A young woman named Reagan was serving us, and she was awesome. We had a great lunch. We went up to the bar. I went up to the bar to pay for it, and she was holding a pop gun. That's what we call it in Canada. That's where I'm from, a soda gun. And as I was signing the bill, she accidentally hit a button, and there was a spurt, and I was covered. My Carolina blue sweater was covered with Coca-Cola syrup. My wife was ready for my reaction. I think Reagan was waiting for my reaction. And I took a second and I said to Reagan, Reagan, can I ask you a personal question? And she said, yes. And I said, have you ever done this to anyone before? And she said, no. And I said, so what you're saying to me is that I'm special. And she said, you're definitely special. And I said, well, thank you so much for starting our holiday by making me feel so special. And I thought that the sweater was ruined, but it wasn't. It all came out. It was all good. The point of it is, it starts with intention. It starts with intention. So your career, your life, your marriage, your time with your children starts with intention. So have a good one. And so I would love you to challenge you to, in this session today, have an intention, something that you want to get. And certainly I'll start with my intentions. Two things. One is that Shelley and I are the coaches for CMAA. And so you have the benefit that you can call us and have one-on-one, 1 to 3 one-on-one sessions at no charge. And so you have somebody that does this for a profession that can support you in bringing out the best in you. So one of my intentions is hopeful that you'll take advantage of that. Not everyone does. Not every one of the 7,000 people have. In fact, a very small percentage do. But what we find is it's the people at the top of the game that ask for the support. So that's one intention. And then the second intention is for me to help you understand how what we do in coaching will support you as a tool for your leadership in how you work with people in your career and in your profession. So those are my intentions. So now that you understand my intentions, let me tell you a little bit about you, first of all, and then we'll get into the program today about how to coach people and some of the things that I can support you with to help you be great at that. Why would you come and work with a coach? And there's a whole bunch of reasons, but I want to go through a few of them. One is accountability. And as a coach, what's different about someone like me is that I'm not accountable for your success. You are. I'm not accountable for your failure. You are. And I think a lot of people go through life thinking that somebody else should take care of them, or somebody else is the reason why they're not happy. And you can go back to the flame, Beth, thank you. And that one little piece, understanding, like you signed up for this program, it was up to you. It's up to you whether you do it or not. It's up to you whether you do the classes. It's up to you whether you get something from it. It's entirely up to you. So when you start to own that your happiness, your career is really about you, and understanding the power that if you are bringing out your best, then you're going to be at your best. And so that's the first point. Sometimes in coaching, we're just there to support people wherever they are. And so sometimes people call us when they're in transition, when they've lost a job, or if they're going from one club to another club, or they're going from one position to another position, or they're going from student to working, or they're going from working to retirement. It doesn't really matter, but sometimes that transition time is a time when people come and talk to us. Another time is when there's some issue they're dealing with. Might be a challenge at the club, challenge with their teenage son or daughter. That could be, it doesn't matter. It's anything to do with life, but there's something that they're working through that They are not, it's not easy. They're not getting through it. So they might need some support. That's what we're here for. Sometimes people are just in a funk, they're down, their normal energy is not there. So that's often a time when they might come and speak to us, and just a chance to speak and be heard, I think, is another reason just to come and work with a coach. So our job is to help you be your best. We do that by helping you get understanding and awareness about you. How do you operate? How do you work? What are the things that support you? What are the things that get in your way? What are the beliefs or the thoughts that you're employing that are either hurting you or helping you? And I think a lot of times we help people understand that they judge things. So if something's good or something's bad, and oftentimes things are both. Something in your career that really has worked for you could be working against you as well. Some thought, some belief that you've had that you have the best work ethic and you have to work harder than anybody else, and that's what really got you to where you are. But sometimes that's getting in the way of you being really brilliant at the position you're in now. So that's the kind of thing that people might talk to us. It's a chance for people to think out loud in confidence. When you come and speak to me or Shelley, it goes nowhere else. It's between us. You are the client, nobody else. And there's oftentimes in people's careers where it's a bit lonely. You can't expose some things. It's a chance to be vulnerable. And a lot of people, I think, when you get to a point in our career when you start to realize that vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength. But you have to be careful who you're being vulnerable with. But those are a few of the things. Sometimes people come to us because they have an extraordinary goal that they're trying to achieve, and we can help them get there quicker. And sometimes it's just really deciding to change who you are. We have a belief of who we've been up to this point, and now it's time to go in a different direction. So I would encourage you, beyond what you're going to learn today about coaching other people, is it starts with, I think, being coached yourself. And I can tell you this as a coach, is that I've been doing this for 23 years. And whenever somebody comes to me with some issue that they're dealing with, it's probably something I need to look at for myself. And after 23 years, I can tell you I'm always working at being better for me and for my family and for my wife. And so it's an ongoing thing. I hope you will see some value in getting coached, but also understanding what happens when you do get to coach somebody. And I said earlier, it's a privilege. So Beth, let's go on to the next thing, and we'll start to go through this idea of using coaching as part of your leadership toolbox. So just a quick idea here is that we manage things, we lead people. We manage inventories and budgets and schedules. We manage things. We don't manage people, and people don't want to be managed. And if someone's trying to manage you, I think oftentimes, especially in this day and age with a labor market where it's harder to get people that, just being the person that just tells everybody what to do and asks them not to think, just do what they're told, doesn't work like it did at one time. So we truly lead people. So Beth, we can move on. That'd be great. A little bit about manager as coach, and I'll talk this. So what I'm saying, I'm not saying don't be a manager, don't be a leader, be a coach. I'm not saying that at all. This is a technique or some things you can use in your leadership. So what is it? It's not telling what people to do, it's telling people what to do. It's about helping them decide what to do. The accountability is with them. As long as if I tell you what to do and it doesn't work for you, well, it's because Kevin told me that and I knew from the beginning it wouldn't work. When you decide that this is the right thing to do, you're way more committed to doing it. So we want to get people from internally deciding and taking on leadership of themselves as much as we can. A lot of organizations are moving, I think because the world's changing, and it's not that military model it was 50 years ago or 30 years ago. It's not just show up and do your job and we'll tell you what to do. People are not willing to they don't want to give their lives to employers like that. They want to have some part. They want to know that they can grow, and they want to know that you care about their growth, and that you're going to help them in learning and developing and connecting to the purpose or the why of what we're doing. So what do coaches do differently? Let's go on to the next slide if we could. I just put up this really briefly to tell you that, for instance, what I'm doing with you right now is not coaching. So I'm really teaching, I'm training, if you will. And so there's different modalities that, you know, I do as a coach, or you do. You're not one thing, you're a number of things. And so, you know, I think what's important is to get an understanding what the different things are. So right now I'm probably teaching, training, telling you some things that you might do. I think with mentoring, I see mentors are somebody that have been there and can tell you their opinions on how to get, you know, what based on their experiences, you should do this because this worked for me. Facilitating might be more of a taking people through a discussion or roundtables or whatever to help people, you know, debate or discuss how to get to where you want to go. Coaching, you know, the difference is that as a coach, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're going to tell me what you've decided to do. You know, I have the accountability is with you, and you can take a whole bunch of information, but it's not going to be because you were told by somebody else externally. I'm creating the understanding that you are in control and you're the one that makes things happen or not. And to me, to give people that license and to give people that power and understanding of themselves is powerful. So let's go to the next slide, Beth, if we could. Thank you. Just quickly, I'm not going to speak a lot to this, but there's a difference between managing and coaching. There's a difference between management and leadership. And sometimes you got to do both. And so you know, sometimes you are a manager, sometimes you are a leader, sometimes you are the coach. And so see the difference and realize that it's not one or the other. Thanks, Beth. Okay, the next one is just here's some things about coaches. I became a coach, started studying coaching in the year 2000. In the year 1982, I think I read the book called The 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard and Spencer Johnson. And then I spent the next number of years leading people in organizations, in restaurants, hotels, and country clubs. And I think that for me, the idea of that comes out of that book, The 1 Minute Manager, is that your job as a leader is to make your people win. And it gave some simple tools of how to do that, simple techniques of setting goals, catching people doing things right, delivering praise, observing their behavior. If they did it wrong, you are looking at whether it's a competency or an attitude. Is it a can't do or won't do? And depending on which, you either redirect or reprimand that behavior. But when you do so, you separate the person from the behavior. Well, that's something I learned in the 80s. And when I started to coach people, very much is how I led people in clubs and led people and worked with my family and my children and my coaching clients, is that's pretty simple about how you get people to change behaviors and to be successful in something. And so there are a number of coaching techniques I learned. Some of them when I was starting to coach, I realized that I was already doing them, but they had names for them and I didn't understand what the names were. But the instructors, when I would do something, would say, well, what Kevin just did was called this. And so there are some techniques and things that we do as coaches I'm going to go through in this program to give you some insight. But there are probably things that you already do, just perhaps you can take them to a higher level. Coaches invest time and effort in building relationships. I like to think that when I'm in a coaching relationship with somebody, there's great trust. They know that the agenda is theirs. They know I'm there for them. I have the advantage that I'm not connected to the results of your company. So you have that responsibility, but I am there to help them be their best and bring out the best in them. And so it really takes some time building that trust. Then when you build that trust, you can show, you can highlight and illuminate some of the things that might be getting in their way of being successful. You spend a lot of time talking to them and helping them gain their own awareness and help them keep their minds open and not be closed and judgmental that they everything is the way they believe it to be. I think that's really one of the great things about coaching is you help people see things differently than they've been seeing them before. Because sometimes our old beliefs are the things that hold us back. So thanks, Beth. We'll go to the next one if we could. And thank you, Beth, for helping me with this. We had some technical problems earlier. Coaches see their role as serving people. They're encouraging and supporting. I mean, when you want to take somebody from here to here, you do it by having small victories on the way and consistently encouraging and supporting them in getting there. Thanks, Beth. Okay, so let's in the coaching role, we here when I'm talking to young leaders, I often say to people, say to them that the person asking the questions is in control. Think about that. The person asking the questions is in control. And we think, I think a lot of young people, especially coming out of college, that they think they need to have all the answers. And even a seasoned veteran doesn't have all the answers, although we might think we do. But the person asking the questions is in control. And so starting to realize that the power is not in telling as much as it's in asking. And so the role of a coach is to ask powerful questions, be curious and really ask questions that get people thinking. We provoke thought, we provoke seeing things differently than you've seen them before. Because when you ask questions, first of all, when you ask questions, people think you care about them and you're interested, you're curious. And I think the first book I read after college was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And he said, if you want to impress somebody, don't tell them about you, ask them about them. And that to me has always been such a no-brainer, that when you are with somebody, ask questions. When I get to go to an organization where somebody isn't performing well, I can hardly wait to talk to them because there's so many questions I have that would help them, help them see themselves and help them be aware. And I think that's a lot of it, is there a lot of people are just not aware. And I just had somebody the other day said, I said, it seems like you're not very happy. And the person said, really? Does it seem like that? They weren't aware of how they were coming across to people. And so sometimes the person, I'm going to talk a little bit about questioning and questions. So Beth, we can move on to the next one. Let's keep going, please. Now, 3 key things, we call it the 3 A's: awareness, action, and accountability. So the biggest, when we're working with people, if you want to change, if you want to help people develop and move, the first thing they need is awareness. And so we have a lot of tools, coaching tools. People in our Extraordinary Leader program get all these tools that they can start to understand themselves better. How do I operate? Why do I do the things I do? Why do I do something that sometimes is working against me? I don't understand. Why is that? Well, the more awareness you get, then, when you're aware that you're doing something, then you can solve that problem. When you're aware of doing something, you can see how you can use that to a higher degree than you've been using it before. So a big key of coaching people is to give them awareness. And I can't say enough about that. That is so simple, that we think we're aware. We all think we are. We all think we know how everything works. We know how we work. We don't need any help. but we're not aware. We're not aware of the things that are getting in our way. So when we become aware and we teach, we can give people that awareness. They can have awareness that they're doing something that's working against them, but then that means nothing until you take action. And so often when we're teaching people things, people might say, well, I've heard that before. I know that. Hearing it before and knowing that means nothing if you haven't put it into action. I know I should do that. Great, but did you do it? Have you taken it and put it into action? So that action piece is what we as coaches, we're giving awareness, but now we need you to take action. This is where it's going to really happen. When you learn something, it's one thing to learn it, it's another thing to have done it. What I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. And that's a big part of how we train people, is that you've got to take your new awareness and do something with it. And then the last piece that I mentioned earlier is the accountability piece. I think a lot of managers, a lot of leaders think, well, okay, you said you're going to do this. I'm going to check up on you on Friday and find out if you did it. Well, as coaches, I'm not going to check up on you. You need to check in with me and tell me what you've done. You have to learn to be accountable. This is not me going to make you do something. You don't do it, that's up to you. If you don't change, if you don't develop, that's up to you. Now, again, that's a separate thing from, I'm a coach. Sometimes in leadership and in management, you have to hold them accountable. I get that, but it's better when you can understand how to get them to hold themselves accountable. And accountability, if everybody in your organization took accountability for their part, just think of what it'd be like. And so for a lot of people, accountability is a scary thing, because accountability means being held in a position where you can be punished. In some organizations, people shirk accountability. They don't want to be held accountable because it means that they're going to be punished. I would change that whole thing. Accountability is power. Accountability is success. It's not about, if somebody doesn't do what they say they're going to do, they don't get punished by me, but I would ask them the question, why did you let yourself down on that? Why, what do you realize, do you know why you didn't do it? I often say that when somebody says they're going to do something and they do it and they're successful, we celebrate. And when they don't do it, we celebrate, because it's a opening of a door to helping us figure out what's getting in the way of their success. So maybe looking at accountability in a different way and using it in a language that's a little bit different, but accountability is power. And so when you take accountability, you own it, and that owning it is so important. Thanks, Beth. How are we doing on time? Okay, we got another 25, 30 minutes. So we're helping people with something that's in their ways. We're helping them with a certain goal. And as we do that, it's something for you to think about, is that if you are helping somebody, they're at one of these levels where you come in and you're helping them. So oftentimes, if the issue was, say somebody wants me to help them with their health, or wants to help with their financial situation, or maybe with a relationship that they're having with somebody, there are 4 levels at which they can be operating at. And so if somebody comes and they have a lot of debt, then they're really in the first level, which is the level of repair. So you can't be setting goals or doing things in the other levels until you get past the first level. So if they're in debt, you may be helping them to understand how to get out of debt and pay off some things, or make some more income, or do something that's going to help them get there. They have to put the foundation in place. They need to learn how to budget, or they need to learn how to have insurances, or things that are going to protect and support their financial situation. And then maybe they get to a place of reserves where they have reserves of money, they have savings, they have net worth. And then maybe they get to a point where their money works for them, and they don't have to really think about money too much anymore. well, put that into anything that somebody's dealing with. And so oftentimes if they're coming to you with something that's not working, a problem with getting along with another employee or something like that, they're operating in the area of repair. And so they really need to look at their part of that, their accountability for their piece of that. And that's our job as coaches, to help them move through those levels in any area of their life. Thanks, Beth. I said that the person asking the questions is in charge. And that's powerful. Like, if you get really good at asking questions, you'll be amazed at what you learn. The other side of that is that you have to actually hear. You have to listen. And we have a favorite quote that genuine listening means suspending memory, judgment, and desire, and for a moment at least, existing entirely for the other person. Suspending memory, judgment, and desire, and for a moment at least, existing entirely for the other person. Think about that. You know, in our clubs, sometimes it's hard not to have memory when that complaining person is the person that's complained 50 times before. Here we go again. You know, here we go again. And we already remember all the other complaints, and we all remember that they're never happy. Memory gets in the way. We're not really listening because it's that person that we have some memory with. Judgment. When somebody's speaking, you know, it's so easy and it's pretty automatic for a lot of people that we need to judge it. Whatever they're saying is either right or wrong. It's either good or bad. And when we can suspend that and not know whether it's right or, you know, just hear what they're saying. And then the third one is memory, judgment, desire. Now, oftentimes when we're listening in a conversation, we have a desire. The desire might be that we want to fix it. We want to tell them what the real truth is. We want them to go away. We have some sort of desire. But if we can suspend those three things and truly listen to someone, it's amazing what you can hear. I got a phone call one time. My wife came in. I was in my office, and she came in with our home phone. My office is in our home, and she came in with the home phone. She said, "There's a crying lady on the phone." And so I took the call, and it was somebody from my church, and she was told that if the minister was away, that she should call Kevin MacDonald. And so she called me. I didn't know her. She was new to the church, but she had lost her husband. Her husband had passed away. And we talked for about an hour. I probably talked for about 3 minutes of the hour. Mostly I was listening to her crying, but it was a wonderful example of, I had no memory. I had no memory of her, so I had no judgment. I mean, she lost her husband. I'm not, you know, it's like, oh, it should be fine. You'll be fine. You shouldn't be this upset. I'm not judging it in any way. And I have no desire there's nothing I can do to fix it. Zero. And so perhaps some of the best coaching I ever did was that hour where I spoke for less than 3 minutes. Is that people yearn to be listened to. And there's a lot of lonely people. There's a lot of people that nobody listens to. And my first job as a club manager, I talked to the president. I said, please give me a list of the 5 most difficult members in the club. And in the first week, I made a point of meeting with them, asking them a lot of questions, listening to them. And I really didn't have problems with those members because they just have not been listened to before. And the more people are not listened to, the louder they get and the crankier they get and the more they want to work against things. You know, one of the questions I would have asked them was, you know, how are you happy? Are you, you know, what do you like here? What don't you like? How do you make things better at this club? And that's a question they probably never even thought about. They had a role in that. They certainly had a role in making it worse by just constantly complaining and getting in the way, but they never thought about it from the other direction. So hearing versus listening. We hear with our ears, but we listen to what people are saying. we get rid of the noise, we get rid of all those three things that I just talked about, and just truly listen to what they're saying. And we don't have to fix it. We don't have to tell them they're wrong or right. We just need to listen. And it's amazing when you do listen to people. And I don't know if you've experienced where you've been in a situation where you've truly been listened to like never before. But that's the if you have time, that's the possibility that you have to do with people. And boy, listen to your members. They're fascinating people. Ask them questions. And the more you listen and the more you ask, the more you'll see them in a different light. Because we spend way more time talking and telling than asking and listening. Thanks, Beth. Listen for what motivates people. Listen for what excites people. I had an educator tell me one time, I have a son that had learning challenges. He said, if you want to help your son find his passion and teach him everything he needs to know about life in his passion. When you understand what gets people excited, you are managers of energy, you're leaders of energy, and people in their passion are energized. People talk to people about what they love, talk to people about what excites them, find out what it is. And then listen to, whether it's a group or an individual or a team, what they really need to succeed. And sometimes when you're listening, you're hearing what they're saying, and it's really not about the words they're saying at all. It's about what's between the lines, what they're not saying, or what kinds of things you start to become aware of, what kinds of things might be driving what the issues or the challenges are. So, and then also just listen to your own reactions of what's being said. Like sometimes I've learned this over the years, that what somebody else is going through, I don't need to judge it. I don't need to make it right or wrong. It's just, I don't work with people's past to bring them a present. I work with people's present to bring them a future. And so that's a key point there, is that it's not about going back and fixing something that happened 20 years ago. It's about where we are today. Where do you want to go tomorrow? And that's my job, is to help you get there. Thanks, Beth. Okay. When you're listening, here's some techniques. Obviously, is that you reflect, you paraphrase, and then you truth tell. So reflection, like, okay, so what I hear, there's a term that I will be calling is mirroring, that sometimes people don't see themselves. When you look in the mirror, physical mirror, and you see yourself, it's right there in front of you. But a lot of times people don't see how they're behaving. They don't see how they sound. They don't see how they're coming across. They don't see the things that are getting in their way. And so as the coach, when I can say, hey, do you realize what you just did when you said that? Do you realize what that meant to that person? Or do you realize, the trust you broke when you did this? Like, when you can reflect back to them what they don't see, that's a big part of helping people to move on and to move through things. You paraphrase things. So this is what I heard you say. So what you're saying really is this, or is this what you're saying? Just so I understand, you're having a problem with this person, or you have a problem with every person. Whatever, you paraphrase what you're hearing. And then truth telling, hey, when you did that, you hurt the team. When you came in late, you don't think it's a big deal, but it lets everybody down. It shows people that it's okay to be late, whatever the truth is that maybe they're not seeing that can help them. And sometimes, coaches, our job is to, people, and I notice this with the young students, is that they're so worried about things. They're worried about everything. Like, do I make the wrong decision? What if I go to the wrong club for my internship? I go, that would be fantastic if you go to the wrong club. What do you mean that'd be fantastic? Well, then you find out a club that's not for you, or you're going to find out what things aren't. You can learn a lot from people that aren't great leaders as much as you can learn from people who are great leaders. But stop worrying and realize you're going to be okay. You've got this. And so our job is to help people not to make them feel bad or not to beat them up, or just because we're there on their side. Our intent is to help them. Thanks, Beth. Looking at the time, making sure I'm doing okay. Have the intent to learn rather than immediately offer solutions. I think that's so important, is that especially as you get to 24,093 days of life, some people think, well, now you know so much. I think every day I learn that there's so much I don't know. And so I'm really, really more interested in learning more than I am in telling and showing how much I know. We need to check our agenda as the coaches. What are we trying to do? Is our intent to help that person, or is our intent to be right? Is our intent to show them how great we are as leaders or coaches? Thomas Leonard was the guru of coaching. And when I got into coaching, the whole profession was about 5 years old. And Thomas Leonard, in my first year of coaching, interviewed me as an expert on coaching. And, he made me feel like an expert. He truly was brilliant at bringing out the best in someone, and that's something I strive to do. But he said to me, whenever I think I'm a great coach, I'm not, and whenever I think I'm not, then I'm a great coach. I probably am a great coach, and so the point of that quote is just that if you're thinking about you, then you've got the wrong focus. As a coach, it's not about me, it's about you. It's got nothing to do with me. If you're successful, that's your success. So that's a really important thing, is we want to think, well, we're great leaders, we're great managers. Sometimes our ego gets in the way, and just check that and be careful with that. So we check our agenda, mirror back what they have said, show them what they said. I just spoke to that. Ask great questions, be curious, clarify the outcome. Yeah, I started this presentation with, what is your intent? So when I'm coaching somebody, it's really clear, where do you want to be at the end of this hour? Where do you want to be at the end of this 3 months or end of this year? What outcome is it that you're looking to achieve? Okay, thanks, Beth. There's a magic of inquiring. You ask innocently, there's no agenda. You're not asking to catch somebody or to, we get to interview extraordinary leaders on our extraordinary leader program. Once a month, we bring in some leader from the world, and there's no gotchas. There's no trying to make them look bad or be, ask hardball questions. It's really about bringing out their genius, and so that we can learn from it and bring out their passion and what makes them great leaders. And so we can start to emulate that and and ask questions about that. So listen first, then create the question. Listen to where people are, listen to what's going on, and then ask the question. Thanks, Beth. I'd love to have questions at the end of this if you have some for me. Watch your language. I don't know if your parents ever said that to you. Your language is powerful. Your words are powerful. And we can tell you as coaches that the words you use will shape your life. And you're probably not even aware of how you've been doing that positively or negatively. But we want you to be aware of what you say. We want you to be aware of the words you use. We want you to be aware of the meaning that you give things, and whether you're sarcastic or mean-spirited with your words. What do you think your words are doing? And if you were really clear on what your words are doing, you'd be very, very careful with the words you choose. So, when you're asking questions or you're giving opinions to people in the role of a coach, are you free of judgment? Are you looking to help them, or are you looking to be right? Is your language got good? Does it have good intent? Sometimes you hear use storytelling metaphors, examples. One school of coaching when I was starting out would say you only ask questions. The school I went to said, hey, when you hear, if I have somebody that's going through a certain, if somebody else has gone through a similar situation, or if I can tell you my situation, again, when I said mentoring, you should do it my way. If I tell a story about what happened in my past, it's not because I'm telling you need to do that. In fact, it could be that you need to not do that, but that story may help people see themselves in it so they can make that decision for themselves. And then match their language. I often, when we're dealing with complaints, sometimes that's interesting. If you were back in my days of running a club or running hotels or restaurants, is sometimes if somebody was very upset, I might be very upset as well for them. Or sometimes if they're very upset, I might be very calm to be the opposite of what they are, to calm them down. It depends on the situation. But when we're building trust with people, matching language is something. If you want to, any of these things, if you want more clarity, please set up a coaching session with me and we can talk about that. Okay, thanks, Beth. I think I'm getting there at the time. Empower people. Become a great acknowledger. You already probably are, but one of the skills of a coach is to really, acknowledge what somebody just did and see, and maybe show them and help them understand, what they just did, how that shows up, or what difference that just made, or the fact that they just may not know. I love playing golf with golf professionals. Because, when a golf professional says, Kevin, you have a great golf swing, I actually believe them. And if somebody else who's never played golf says you have a great golf swing, it wouldn't mean as much. But when somebody that we care about, somebody that's a significant other, our boss or our leader or CEO, when we as people, as leaders of people, can come up to somebody and say, hey, I just saw what you did with that member, and I can tell you it was awesome. I'm so proud of you. It's powerful. And I was at a club, and this woman said, she worked on the greens crew, and she said that she was raking bunkers, and the superintendent came racing up the fairway and said to her, who raked the bunker on the right side of number 5? And she said, she sheepishly said, well, I did. And he said, it's beautiful. Like, if I could get every bunker to look like that, it's perfect. Like, thank you so much. Just keep raking bunkers like that. That's the 1 minute manager, by the way, if you haven't figured that out. But she said, every time I get into a bunker, I remember how great I am at bunkers. People need acknowledgement. And so part of our job as coaches is to help people see not just the bad, but see the good, see what they're doing. Tell them what they're doing right. Share your inklings. It just means, hey, you're saying everything's great, but I feel like something's off. Are you okay? You're sensing that something's off. I can tell you at conferences, oftentimes I see got people walking around telling how great their clubs are and how great everything is. And then, they come into a room with me and they tell me how things are really going. We want people to think that we've got it all together, and probably none of us do 100%. So if you don't, then don't feel like you have to pretend that you don't. Like, come and talk to somebody in confidence that can support you. We start to draw conclusions with them, not for them, with them, see the possibilities. And oftentimes a big thing is about reframing. Life is full of perspective, and, something that is a big problem to us today may seem like a terrible thing. And it's just so small. We were on a call yesterday, and a woman was they were talking about being parents and raising little kids, and this woman, who I thought might have been in her late 20s, early 30s, her oldest child is 18 or 19. And she said that she has been blind since birth. And then all of a sudden you could just see all the other parents that are dealing with whatever they're dealing with go, oh, my kids stay on their iPad too long. Life is full of perspective. All right, Beth, let's go. Okay, there's an 8-step coaching model. I'll go through it really quickly. If you want to practice this, if you really want to coach somebody, and maybe you get somebody in this program that you get together and you sort of practice this. But if you want to take somebody through, and it doesn't have to take long, but if you do these 8 things, you can move somebody's behavior. So the first thing is get permission to coach. There's nothing worse than unsolicited advice. And the same with coaching. I don't coach somebody unless they want me to coach them. I don't need to tell anybody what they can do and give them thoughts and support unless they ask for it. So before you start coaching somebody, make sure hey, would you like some coaching on that? And if they say, no, thanks, I'm good, then that's fine, don't. But if they say, yeah, I really would, then here we go. So number 2, help them clearly define their outcome. Hey, I want to lose 5 pounds, or I want to stop smoking. Okay, that's the outcome. When you want to stop smoking by, like get as clear as possible. Ask some questions to get clarity. Then identify what it would be like if they did it. Like, what would it do if you did that? Like, what would it feel like if in 2 months you were a non-smoker? Oh, it'd be incredible. My family would be so happy. I'd be saving so much money. It'd be a good example for my kids. It'd be fantastic. So you want to identify with what's motivating it. Now, then what would it cost you? Like, what would happen if you're not successful? Well, it's going to cost me the money I spend on it. I'm going to feel bad about myself. My clothes are going to smell. So you also want to connect them with what their cost is, or what the pain is. So you want to connect them in their outcome to what motivates them, and also why sometimes people are motivated by what isn't they don't like. Number 5, Beth, if we could. So what's getting in the way of you stopping smoking? Well, I've tried a number of times and it just never works. So what gets in the way? Well, I get around people who are smoking and that really makes me want to smoke. Or, I've always got a pack in the house and I say I'm not going to use it, but I always go to it, or whatever the blocks are. What are the things that are getting in the way of them changing that behavior? Okay, well, what's one thing you could do today to start to move towards this? And the one thing about achieving any goal, it starts with one first step. But if you never take the first step, you can't take the second. And so our job is to move people from idea to action. And so what's the very next thing you can do? What's the first thing you can do? I'm going to Barcelona this year. What's the first thing you do? Well, I can learn about Barcelona. I can book flights. I can book accommodations. Whatever, I can talk to people that have been to Barcelona before and give me ideas of where I should stay or what I should do. What's the first thing you're going to do? And then number 7 is how are you going to make sure you stay accountable on this? Like, how are you going to, what accountability system are you going to set up? Well, I'm going to make sure that my wife makes sure I never have cigarettes in the house. And, I'm going to ask all my friends to help me. And, I'm going to check in with you every Friday to tell you how I'm doing, whatever they've decided their accountability methods will be. And then finally, you acknowledge and reward. Hey, great effort. This is a great idea. If you start with this, I think you're going to move forward. Let's keep identifying more thoughts, feelings, and actions that we need to change in order to help you get your success. It doesn't have to take long. That's what you just sort of go through. In a coaching interaction, if you're coaching somebody, where do you do it? You do it somewhere private. Like oftentimes, what people are going to say might be confidential, and you want to create an environment where it's not you're the boss and they're sitting below you in front of your desk or something like that. Go and get in some neutral place, out on a golf court on the golf course, or a golf cart on the golf course, or in nature, or just in the dining room when nobody's sitting out there. Wherever you can go and have a neutral place. Block off a certain amount of time. Hey, I got 15 minutes. We can talk about this. I got half an hour, but but spend that time and give it to them, not on your agenda, but to get whatever they need in that time. You might try using that model. And then the last thing is, and this is important, is that if they come and talk to you about something and then somebody else knows about it, then you've just lost all your trust. For me, over 23 years, there's people have told me some extremely sensitive things about their life. And if I were to betray that trust and tell somebody else, that would be awful for me. And so I take that very seriously. And yet sometimes you have to be careful about something that doesn't seem all that, that person said that they're going here or whatever. You have to be careful with the confidentiality. Okay, Beth, we're almost there. Thanks. Part of it is, about coaching versus managing is, I think a lot of times managing, okay, you need to do this, then you need to do that, and I want you to do this, and then I want you to do that. Is that here, with coaching, it's more, hey, I want you to get to this place. How are you going to get there? And I'll allow them to have some ownership of how that's going to work and how they're going to manage their time. I don't know how you are, but when people have to tell you that they want you to do it exactly their way, gosh, it's hard. If you coach people, people will manage their work. Think about that. By attempting to manage people, you're limiting their potential at times. I mean, obviously, that's not a 100% true statement, but what you're trying to do is give them the accountability and the responsibility to be really great at something. If that's the intention, I don't want you to just be here and be okay. I want you to be great at something. I've helped people go to other careers where they can be really great, because to me, that's more important than them being mediocre here or even great here if that's not their passion. A manager is a title and it does not guarantee success. Yeah, hey, you've been given a title and you deserve the respect that title gives you, but it's not everything. How you show up for people is going to be a huge part. Okay, Beth. Hey, you already are a coach. So a lot of things that we just talked about, you're already doing. Maybe you can do them better. Maybe you can do them more intentionally. Maybe you have a different understanding. Maybe you can talk to me and get if it's something that you want to take on, and quite frankly, maybe you don't. Maybe it's okay in your style that you just tell people what to do. It works. We had Doug Smith was one of the speakers at a CMAA conference. We had him on our program, and CMAA heard him and asked him to speak at their conference in San Diego one year. And he said that when he was the CEO of a major corporation, he was a real boss hole. And I'd not heard that term before, but I get what it means. And he said when he got cancer, and when he came back from cancer, when he was a boss hole, he didn't care about people. He would run over people, he'd beat up people, he'd abuse them and tell them that they're no good, or whatever he could do to motivate them to get the best results. And the problem, he said, with being a boss hole is that it worked. But when he got cancer, and when he came back from cancer, he cared less about the results and more about the people. And he found out that he got better results. And he said, so all along, he could have been a way better leader if he really was looking at helping them achieve their goals, but being the boss hole worked. So if it's working, if you have those tendencies that are working for you, the point of that is that it could work better. And so be careful with just believing that everything's okay the way it is. Okay, and then watch what happens when you really engage people and challenge them to be their best. Hey, if you're in an environment where people, if people just want to bring out the best in you, you want to go to work. So, okay, Beth, are we there? Okay, well, we're not quite there. Just here's the last question I have for you is, what have you decided? What have you decided? I hope you didn't just go, oh, that was interesting. Now I've achieved what I had to do for this program and I can check off this box. I hope something happened that's going to change you as a leader. I hope something happened that is going going to, I hope something happened that is going to maybe motivate you to have a coaching session with Shelley or me, or reach out, at least have a conversation about something that you would like to learn more about. Okay, Beth.
Thank you so much, Kevin. That was such great advice. I think Ken may have some questions for you.
Okay,
Yep.
and I think there's
Yep.
one more slide, is there not, Beth? Yeah, I'll just put that up there, just so people have access to figure out that toll-free number 866 is if someone wants to call my office. You can email us if anybody would like a coaching session. Please remember, that's a benefit of being in CMAA. Ken.
Great. Well, that was amazing. Thank you, Kevin, for this informative presentation on coaching and leadership. Just to follow up on the coaching aspect of CMAA, and having successfully worked with you on coaching, both personally and developing our team, how can anyone watching this webinar take advantage of the coaching sessions provided by CMAA?
Well, all you have to do, anybody right now, if you just phone 1-866-822-3481, leave me a message or email me and just set up an appointment. It's as simple as that. We just have to find a time that works on both of our schedules. But this is a benefit that CMA started in 2003. And so every time I get to go and speak at a chapter or speak at a club, all of a sudden you get a lot of people from that area that are using it. But it's a benefit for you. And I think in the beginning, people thought, oh, that's something you use if you have a problem or if you lose your job. And that's how it started. But it's really for people who just want to be at their best. And I would say, not just at work, not just in your career, but in life. Like, to me, if you're not living a great life, then why would people want to follow you? And I think there's a lot of leaders that have just done a career where they give their all to their club, and then there are people are going, gee, I don't think I could ever aspire to that, because I want to have a family and I want to have fun and I want to go and have holidays, and that example of someone that does the opposite of that is not very motivating. So how are you going to bring a great life to that place you work, where you're going to work?
Excellent. Also, would you mind touching on the Extraordinary Leadership Program that seems to be so beneficial to club management teams? I know I was involved in that in the past, and I know there's other programs that you offer as well.
Yeah, so when we were starting out with CMA, a lot at the beginning, we were coaching people who lost their jobs. And that's how we were, that was something that CMA didn't have anything really for anybody who lost their jobs. So, I became that person that people would talk to, and I would help them get over the loss, and I would help them own their accountability for what happened. And I would help them get clear on what the right job, instead of just jumping into the next job, was. And then after a while, Shelley and I were talking about it, and we just said, well, it's great to be there, and it's a privilege to be with somebody in that time. I've lost my job in my past, and I know what it was like. But yeah, we can just go to the full screen if you want, Beth. We can get rid of that if you want. But we decided, well, wouldn't it be great if we helped them not lose their job? And one of the reasons we thought that maybe that a GM and someone like your position, Ken, is that you get lots of training, and you get, you've been going through this for years. You've been very dedicated with how you learn. But sometimes there's people in your organization that are supervisors, that are in leadership, or department heads that are in leadership, who just haven't had the leadership training. They technically are very good at what they do. They know food and beverage, or they know accounting, or whatever the thing is, but they haven't learned to lead people. So we created an environment. We created this program where a club can inexpensively have a number of people that are learning at the same time about leadership. And every month we have 12 different modules, and every month we look at a segment of leadership. But there's two lessons, and the first one's always about you. So if the lesson was about vision that month, the first lesson would be about your personal vision, And then the second lesson would be about creating, articulating, and bringing to life a vision for your team, your department, your organization. And then we have some visionary leader come on and we interview them. So we do that, and then we have a number of opportunities for people to be coached and to learn how to coach. So that's the program we built, and that we launched it in 2007. And so it's just, we're so proud of what it has become, and it's all done on Zoom now. So you get to hang out with people from around North America and build relationships and your skills and change your life. So it's not just about changing your career. Thanks for asking.
Well, I know it had an impact on our group as well. Beth, did you have any other questions you might want to ask?
Yes, Kevin, what 2 books around the avenue of coaching that you would suggest our members and participants in this program check out, just so they get a little bit more in depth if this is the kind of direction they want to go in?
Wow. Well, and Ken would know this because I've spoken at his club a number of times. I'll give you 2 that come to mind that are my favorites that I just wish everybody would read, and then I'll give you a third one too. But The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz is to me foundational in my marriage and foundational if you can teach people to live the 4 agreements at your organization, in your relationships, you take the drama out. It's a book about communication. And if there's only one thing I could do at any club, if I could improve the communication, you're going to improve the club. So the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I said The 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard and Spencer Johnson, Dr. Spencer Johnson. Ken Blanchard has been on our Extraordinary Leader program. And if you don't know who Ken Blanchard is, he's probably written 60 leadership books. The brilliance of the 1 Minute Manager is simplicity. And I think that gets lost sometimes, that we try to confuse or bring into such detail or difficulty. We don't think if it's not hard, then it must not be worthy. This is a simple way to be a parent, simple way to build people in any walk of life. And then simple. This might sound odd, but somebody just told me that the Savannah Bananas are living to this. Is that the 5 love languages? I don't know if you know what the 5 love languages are, but that book really gives you a sense of the author just slipped my mind here, but that book really gives you a sense of how to communicate with people in their language, and just simple that we think we communicate in our language and people should understand it, but if they don't speak our language, they don't understand. Well, that's true in relationships, is that different people speak in different languages. So that's a good awareness book. Thanks, Beth.
Thank you.
And Beth, thanks for coming to Vancouver.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
And I got to tell you, I love it when people from Florida come to Vancouver.
It was a very special trip, and most importantly, spending time with you. So thank you for everything you've done for me over the years as well.
Great,
Well,
great. And yes, once again, thank you, Kevin, for helping us all become better leaders. And thank you, Beth, Sergeant of the Florida chapter, for facilitating the program. Thank you.